Good afternoon and welcome to the Barn Theatre in Cirencester, where we're hosting the first Cotswold District Council live Q&A about the coronavirus. My name's Councillor Joe Harris and I'm the leader of Cotswold District Council, and I'm joined today by two colleagues, by Councillor Andrew Doherty, who's sat next to me. Andrew is the Cabinet Member for Waste and Recycling at the District Council, and I know you've got lots of questions about waste and recycling, especially at the minute. We're also going to be joined by Councillor Jenny Forde via video link in a pre-recorded segment I did earlier. Now, this is a new format, and it's a new opportunity for residents to engage with the council and councillors and really understand what we're doing and hopefully make sure that you're better informed as to what's going on and aware of the help and support available to you. We're going to be repeating this every Tuesday, so if your question isn't answered today, there's always next week, and any that we can't answer today, we will endeavour to make sure we do after this session. I think the first thing to say is bear with us. This is the first episode that we're doing. We've got a fantastic team here at the Barn Theatre making it possible, but like anything, there might be a few teething problems, but hopefully everything will run smoothly. I want to say a big thank you, first of all, for the Barn Theatre for allowing us to use their facilities and for making it happen. The Barn Theatre have really reinvigorated themselves, already part of the community here in Cirencester, but they've reinvented themselves since the coronavirus restrictions were put in place and have provided a streaming service for their shows. We had Tweedy the Clown on yesterday and the day before. We had Geoffrey Clifton Brown, the MP, doing a Q&A about business on Friday, and we're here today taking questions from residents about the council's work. I also want to say a massive thank you. Who could fail to have been moved by the Clap for the NHS campaign that we had on Thursday evening? A big thank you to the NHS. You are heroes. I think it's also worth mentioning and saying a big thank you to a lot of the key workers who are providing support for vulnerable people in our community, to our council staff who are making sure that services can continue to function. I know, for example, our refuse collectors have really been buoyed by the message of support, the round of applause they get when they go around. They're doing a fantastic job, and thank you to all of them. And a big thank you as well to all residents. This has meant huge upheaval. These really are unprecedented times, and for many of us, life has changed in a massive, massive way. So well done to you, and I hope today that we can provide some assistance to you. So we're going to be with you for between 30 and 45 minutes, and we're going to split the section into three segments. The first section will be questions that we've received in advance of this, either via email or via social media that we've had in the last 24 hours. The second section, we're going to go to a pre-recorded segment that I did with Councillor Jenny Forde earlier today with some questions that we had in advance. And the third section will be live questions. So these are questions that we're getting on my computer in front of me as this broadcast goes live. So I want to say, just finally, if we can't do all of your questions, if we can't get through them all today, we will endeavour to get them done after this meeting, and there's always next week and the week after and every week that we do this live Q&A session, so please bear with us. Right, I'm going to hand over now to Councillor Andrew Doherty, who, as I said, is our Cabinet Member for Waste and Recycling. He's very busy at the minute. He's going to give us a quick couple of minutes about what we've been doing around waste, some of the decisions that have been made, and then we'll fire it open for questions and some of our questions we've had in advance. So, Andrew, over to you.
Thank you, Joe. I'm going to do a couple of quick updates and some essential things that are important about the waste service at the minute. There's quite a few of the things you'll notice have changed that you've picked up as things you've asked about in your questions. So we'll cover those as we go through and doing some of the Q&A sessions. The waste service and waste services across the country generally are a key service. They're a part of the critical infrastructure, and they are all struggling with new challenges in what are unprecedented times. So there's a couple of kind of quick messages to get out that's important for people to know about, because they represent things that are particular problems around waste services at the minute. Staffing is a big problem for everybody. I think everyone's getting messages from their phone providers and their credit card companies and similar saying don't call us unless you have to because we've got less staff on, and that's true in waste services as much as it is anywhere else. So at the minute the crews are under a lot of pressure, and they really need you to be following the instructions and the guidance we've previously given you on how to present and arrange your waste and your recycling. If you're not sure what you'll be doing, then please look at the instructions that we posted through to you previously. And if you can't find those, have a look on the back of the calendar. You may well have stuck to the fridge, which has got instructions on the back, as well as your collection calendar on the front. If you're looking for information on the website, look under the bins and recycling section, and we keep that up to date with whatever the latest status is and with how we'd like you to present and arrange containers at the minute. One particular topic, and I think this is alluded to in one of the questions that comes up later, is about how much waste to put out. Bear in mind, although a lot of people are at home, that's true of everybody. And one of the problems we've got at the minute is people putting out a lot more waste and recycling than normal, and we don't necessarily have the capacity on the vehicles to hold that, and we don't have the staff to collect it all. So we really need you to try and stick to the kind of waste that you'd normally produce in a normal day, as if this was normal times, which of course it isn't. The other thing that's a big issue at the minute, with everyone being stuck at home and eating everything at home, is food waste. And food waste has become a significant problem. We're collecting a lot more than normal, around about 2.5 kilos per household per week, when our top estimate for how much we'd collect originally was around about 2 kilos. So please don't throw away things you should still be using, and don't overbuy. So Sunday's roast chicken should be Monday's chicken soup, it should be Tuesday's chicken stir fry. None of us will be going out to shop more than we need to. We all need to be reducing demand both on the supermarkets and on food waste going into waste services both here and across the country. If you're not sure what to do with food waste, for example, there's a brilliant website called Love Food, Hate Waste. You can go on there, they've got lots of good guidance on how to store, preserve and use food, and they've got lots of things like recipes, for example, for leftovers and other things. What can I do with food that I've got left over? Last thing probably is just, again, as Joe's alluded to, is just publicly express thanks towards the crews and the people, and they are people at the end of the day, who are out there picking up your waste and your recycling and your collections. I know most of them won't get to see this live because they're all out doing collections still at the minute, and many of them will be going on till 5 o'clock or later in the collection rounds they do today. But they've very much appreciated the thanks that lots of you have passed on to them through me or directly, and we very much appreciate your appreciation of them and the work that they're doing.
Thanks, Andy. I think in that vein then, let's ask a couple of questions. Let's start with the waste service and then we will go. Good to see we've got a good following of people, lots of people commenting. Hello to Barry, Marion, Linda, Rachel, Liz, fantastic, welcome, and we're thrilled to have you with us. Let's start then with one on waste, linked into what you just said. So Terry in Tetbury wants to know, Andy, why have we suspended garden waste collections? Because I know there's a bit about this in the press and some mixed reactions.
Yep, so garden waste is the only waste service we do which is not statutory. It's not actually a thing we're required to do. The garden waste service and the suspension of it is part of our contingency planning. So I've had a few people ask me and say, why haven't you got a contingency plan for doing garden waste? And unfortunately, suspending garden waste is the contingency plan to allow us to keep running the other waste services. The primary problem at the minute is, like a lot of other people, last week we got to a point where we had perhaps 20% of staff missing. And in somewhere like the Cotswolds, that's particularly critical because we are so rural. We're the 12th biggest district in the country, and local knowledge is really vital for crews and for drivers in particular. So one of the things we end up having to do is to prioritise those drivers with that knowledge on the core and key services, the ones we really must continue doing as much as possible. And because of that, we suspend the garden waste service to give us those extra drivers on those other services we need to keep providing. It wasn't a planned change when it was announced last Thursday, so we did get that information out to people as quickly as we could, but essentially on the Thursday we didn't have enough staff available, agency staff were not available, drivers were now either self-isolating or looking after vulnerable relatives or needing to stay off because they were showing things which are symptoms, and at that point we have to make decisions about what we can and can't do, and that's the point at which we decided we needed to suspend garden waste. So I'm sorry, it is inconvenient, it is a nuisance. I use the garden waste service, same as lots of other people, but it's part of the contingency planning to keep everything else running.
So Andy, linked in with that, how can residents make their own contingency plans? What sort of actions could residents be taking to try and reduce their garden waste? I know some people have mentioned home composting, that sort of thing. Do you have any ideas on that?
We were going to have a load of communications going out to people that we were busy preparing and getting ready to send out to talk about advantages of using home and community composting. And a lot of that was for environmental reasons to do with the footprint of the service and the hundreds of thousands of miles we drive these vehicles around the district each year to pick things up. There's a lot of good guidance online in terms of how to start a compost heap, and it's a thing I would have been recommending to everyone, even if the coronavirus situation wasn't happening. At the minute, it's particularly useful because it's a way of dealing with more of that material yourself at home and not relying on that collection. So if you have a look, for example, the Eden Project do guidance on composting. People like the RSPB, a lot of our wildlife organisations do it. If you're a very keen gardener, people like the Royal Horticultural Society would also be doing a lot of guidance on what will fit in the space you've got, how to run it well, what will work best for you in your particular circumstances.
Okay. Thanks, Andy. I'm sure we'll come back to that in a second. Mark in Morton in Marsh wants to know, if we do reduce the waste service because of staff shortages, that sort of thing, what will be prioritised? So, for example, will food be the priority, collecting food? Will your general waste, your agreement? Is there a sort of plan to reduce the number of, the size of the service available?
Yeah, there's exactly that. So there's a pre-planned contingency, and the garden waste was the first step in that. So if you think about it, it's probably what you'd expect is we concentrate on the things which cause most problems by hanging around. So primarily that's things like residual waste, so your normal black wheelie bin, because that, for example, you've got things you've thrown away, you may have nappies, you may have medical waste people are producing, all sorts of things that you don't want to be lying around for a long time. And then obviously now we have the separated food service, there's the food itself. So food and residual waste are the two most core services we would keep running under all possible circumstances for everyone in the district. That obviously leaves that gap in the middle where you've got a lot of the recycling services, particularly things that are dry recycling. Cardboard, glass bottles, cans, plastic bottles, all of those things are relatively easy to store at home. Inconvenient, but still possible to store at home. So those are the kind of things you'd see starting to drop off next if we need to go to the next stage of our contingency plans.
Okay, thanks, Andy. I will give you an opportunity to pause for breath and have a sip of water. Thank you. One of the main questions we've had over the past 24, 48 hours has been around council tax. So we'll come back to garden waste in a minute. So, and loads of people have asked about this. So Nick Hughes in Cirencester, Sharon O'Grady, Rob Gibson, Lloyd Nail, Gareth Williams, Alison. I'm looking at the live stream now. A number of people have asked this. So lots of people are asking if we can defer council tax or even take people out of it. Now, we can't have a blanket. We can't have a blanket solution where we sort of suspend council tax for everyone, because like a business or any other organisation, we have a cash flow problem. We need to make sure that we're able to pay our staff. We need to make sure that we've got enough cash to deliver those vital services. So we can't have a uniform approach to it. What we can do, though, is people that are struggling, people that have found themselves out of work, contact the council, and we will make sure we do it on a case-by-case basis. So if you contact customer services at the district council, 01285 623 talk to one of our customer services advisors. They're really, really friendly and they're really, really helpful. We will look at every individual case, and if you need help, there is help available for you on your council tax. I'd love to be able to say, right, no one has to pay their council tax for a few months until we're through this, but unfortunately, we're just not in a position. We haven't got really much extra funding from government to go towards our core services. A lot of the money that's coming from government is for business grants and that side of thing. So we need to make sure that we've got enough cash running through the organisation so we can continue to fund those vital services, like we've heard from Andy, the waste service, environmental health, all of these services, and make sure that people are paid. I think the point to make as well is the government grant schemes that they've put together for residents, for businesses, for workers, they are designed so people are able to pay their bills. So with those schemes, you should be able to have enough income to pay your bills. Clearly, there are going to be some instances where that's not the case. And what I'd advise you to do is ring the council, and we will do what we can to help you. We've already done it. We've taken a number of people out of paying council tax. So please contact our customer services team, and they'll help you through that. So let's have a look at some of our other pre-prepared questions. I think the thing to add as well, if you want to follow up, comment on the page, and I'll come back to that in the second segment because there might well be follow-up questions to that. What have we got then? So let's have a look. Andy, another one for you. Obviously, within your portfolio, you're responsible for our public spaces, notably our cemeteries. So Sarah in Cirencester asks, will you consider allowing one daily hour of public access to the Chesterton Cemetery on compassionate grounds? Because as we know, we've had to close the cemeteries. Andy?
So it's an excellent suggestion. The practical problem at the minute for us, again, is staff related. So at the minute, we couldn't guarantee we'd be able to make the staff available to definitely open and close it at a particular time. Along with that, some other of our neighbouring councils had problems with cemeteries in terms of people congregating. And one of the things I definitely wouldn't want to be doing is putting our staff in a situation where they feel they need to police any inappropriate behaviour. At the minute, this is probably something we're talking about in this notional 3-week period that people have talked about. We all know it is likely to go on longer than that. But one of the things that's very noticeable is obviously as all of us, as the public, understand what is happening and what is important and what social distancing means, behaviour is changing. So there's, I think, a reasonably good chance that we will be able to change the arrangements in the relatively near future. But right now we need to get over the hump of the staff difficulties we've got and having staff available to do the essential things and core things that we need them for.
Thanks, Andy. We've got a question in advance on Twitter that the comms people that put together my document here with our pre-required questions, bit of a light-hearted one. So, a more mundane impact of the coronavirus is I don't think I've ever noticed your hair being so long, Joe. Are you letting it grow wild, or will you attempt a DIY #stay-at-home cut? I can confirm that this lighting is very flattering. My hair is a disaster at the minute, and as soon as this is over, I'm going from a haircut, but that could be a little while yet. Right, back on to some more serious business. Let's go to... this is an anonymous one from Bybury. Could you please let us know when the government grant for small businesses will be available? Are we contacted directly, or do we have to apply? So I'll answer that, and Andy, if you want to chip in, I know you've been, you're sort of aware. So as of tomorrow, we're getting £35 million worth of funding from the government, specifically for businesses. The District Council have identified 3,000 businesses that are eligible for this grant payment. The issue that we've got is that we only hold bank details for about 35% of those businesses. So those 35% that we know about, they should get an automatic payment, all being well. What we really need to know is bank details of the other businesses we don't have details for. So if you run a business in the Cotswolds, it's probably worth giving the District Council a ring, 01285 623 000, or popping us an email, and finding out if we've got your bank details. We need your bank details, or we can't pay you any money. We're also awaiting an update to our computer system to support the payment of the grants. Clearly, this is a massive change. These are unprecedented times, and we need to tweak our computer systems slightly. Letters have been issued to all businesses in the Cotswolds, and this signposts people to our website. And a copy of this letter is on our website. If you head to cotswold.gov.uk/coronavirus, you will find lots of details and support for businesses on there and things you might be eligible for. This software issue we're going to make the government aware of. A number of other councils, I think, are having a similar problem. I think the thing to say is if you hear of other authorities getting payments before us here in the Cotswolds, it's probably due to that software issue. We are aiming to get the payments processed as soon as possible. To help us speed that up, get your bank details into the District Council if we don't have them already, and we'll aim to get payments made as soon as possible. But certainly we're looking for the next few days. As soon as we can get that money released, we absolutely will. So support for businesses is ongoing. Right, we're going to head now to a pre-recorded segment I did with Councillor Jenny Forde. Jenny is our Cabinet Member for Health, Wellbeing and Public Safety. So we're going to head over to that now, and I'll see you again in 10 minutes or so. So Jenny, you've been busy over the past few weeks coordinating the District Council's efforts, particularly with response to volunteers and certainly the health and wellbeing side of things. Can you just give us a sort of couple of minutes about what, some of the work that you've been doing over the last few weeks to sort of aid the effort of the District Council?
Yeah, of course. So it's a three-tiered approach. We've spoken to most of the district now, and we're getting a clear picture of what's happening right across the Cotswolds. Residents sprang into action very fast, along with many of their parish councils, and have set up local and locally resourced support groups for local neighbourhoods, which is fantastic. And we're getting a good understanding of what's happening where. We've also got the Gloucestershire Help Hub, which is a place where people can volunteer to help. They can also, if you're a business and you want to volunteer your services, you can volunteer that. And it also picks up people whose needs might not be met locally. And we receive those files on a daily basis. So my staff work round the clock and all through the weekend, 7 days a week, responding to those requests. And then thirdly, we have our established voluntary sector, which is our food banks, the Churn Project, Cotswold Friends, and all of those sorts of groups who are doing a fantastic job doing what they can, and we are supporting them also in every way possible, with resources and volunteers, and also we're in a position now where we can start to give them some financial support as well.
Thanks, Jenny. Let's go to resident questions then. I've got one here from Catherine in South Cerney, who wants to know, how can she volunteer in her community? What's the best way that she can get involved?
Okay, there's a number of ways. I mean, it depends very much on the individual area. It's always worth doing a quick search online if you're able to do that, just to see if there's anything happening locally. Some channels such as Nextdoor have proved very popular in terms of finding out what's happening locally. The other thing you can do, of course, is go through, as I've just mentioned, the Gloucestershire Help Hub. And you can volunteer on there very easily, and you will be channeled through by our staff at the Cotswold District Council to the relevant and most appropriate group locally.
It sounds like your dogs want to volunteer. I can hear them in the background.
So
That's okay. Right, next up we've got Wixie on Twitter, who wants to know, could you clarify what the position is on second homes in the Cotswolds after there was some confusion after our MP's comments in the press last week? I know this is an issue that you raised with him.
Yes, I did raise that with him. Yes, it did cause a little bit of confusion when he made some comments around this issue. I did speak to him about it, and he has now agreed that he will now support and promote the government advice that people should remain in their primary residence. We have had quite a lot of inquiries about this issue, actually. But essential travel does not include visits to second homes, campsites, caravan parks, whether for isolation purposes or holidays, and people must remain in their primary residence. So we're using the hashtag stay safe, stay local.
Okay, we've got another here from Jessica in Stow-on-the-Wold. How can I ensure that my physical well-being is as good as it can be in these difficult circumstances?
Yeah, well-being is a really, really important thing, mental and physical. We are really encouraging our neighbours to look out for one another, which they are doing. It's about building those relationships locally. It's about keeping up consistency of contact with people. Sometimes all people want to do is just have a chat. It's also about having a routine. So getting up every day, making sure that you get dressed and don't sit around in your pajamas, which is obviously very tempting, and having those routines, going out for a bit of your daily exercise, and also exercising within the home, which people are increasingly doing, which is great. So yeah, routine, physical movement, and those relationships with people, either by phone or increasingly, obviously, through methods such as this.
Finally, we've got one here from Steve, again in South Cerney, just really talking about the policing, the police's response to the whole lockdown. I know you've been coordinating with the police. What's their sort of message? Clearly, you go on social media, all sorts of things blown out of proportion about police state. That's not what it is it?
No, absolutely not. And I speak to the local Cotswold police force almost on a daily basis, and we are still regularly having our community safety partnership meetings. They are not being heavy-handed at all here. The Cotswold police are very much about engaging, encouraging and raising awareness, and policing by consent. They have had a few instances, but as is always with the media, these things get blown completely out of proportion. And on the whole, people in the Cotswolds and residents in the Cotswolds are abiding by the guidance and are staying safe.
Jenny, thank you very much. That's all the questions I've got for you today. We'll see you again next week. I'm sure we'll have many more. So thank you, Jenny, for joining us.
A pleasure.
And Jenny will be joining us next week, so any questions you've got for Jenny, particularly in that role around volunteers and what you can do to help, please do get those in over the next week or so, and we will endeavour to answer those. Right, we're going to move now to live questions. These are questions that have been asked since we've been on air. Right, let's start with Claire Hawke. Andrew, this is one for you. Where can we access the contingency plans for the council so we can all be better prepared? Andrew, it sounds like you've outlined them. Can we make those sort of public in a document?
I'm not sure. I'd have to have a look into that, but I can come back, and if we decide to add that information, we can put it on the website. To be honest, the practical things from a resident's point of view were covered in one of the questions that was asked earlier, in terms of what services would we gradually be cutting out as we have more capacity constraints on staffing or vehicles or other things. One thing to bear in mind with things like the capacity constraints is it's not just us, the people that we move the food waste onto or that we move on our recycling onto are also having the same staff shortages. So all those small moving parts you don't see behind the scenes are getting a bit of a sand between the gears everywhere. The key thing is probably to bear in mind that the first stage of contingency was that garden waste suspension. We'll make other information available as we have it, but a lot of what we're doing in practice, because these are unprecedented plannings, things we're planning for, is working out what we're doing on a day-by-day, a week-by-week basis, and giving people as much notice of that as we possibly can do, and that we will continue to do.
Okay, and I'm going to go right back to you, I'm afraid. Green bin collections, clearly the service has ended early, but people have paid a subscription for that. Anna wants to know, will we get a refund?
I think straightforward answer to that is no. I could spout the terms and conditions and lots of other things like that, but in practice the service basically ended 4 days early, because we ended Thursday last week, and actually today would have been the last day in terms of what people are paid for. That works out to about 57p or £1.14, depending on how you decide to count it. I hope we'd agree that in current circumstances it would not be a good use of our resources to process refunds on that basis.
Okay, I've got a question here from Anna Churn. Why can't council staff be furloughed to allow for reductions in council tax? I think the obvious answer to that at the minute is lots of our services are key services as defined by the government, and I think the government are allowing us to furlough our staff. I wouldn't want to furlough our staff either. I think the council is a great force for good in our community. We've seen that. We've already repositioned some of our staff. I think, for example, some of our forward planning team who deal with what the Cotswolds will look like in the future, they're working on the effort, on the volunteer effort. So where possible, I want to be able to make sure that our council staff are reallocated into other roles if we can get them into it that really help support our community, so that we can ensure that the council tax that you pay is going to the common good and we're helping our communities. So at this stage, I don't think we're able to, and I don't think it's something I'd like to see anyway. I want to make sure that your council tax is being spent on making sure we're helping the most vulnerable in our community. Andrew, you wanted to...
Yeah, just to pick up on that, the council doesn't stop, obviously, because its circumstances are going on, because of so much of what we do are essential services. So, for example, the phone lines are very busy at the minute. They're kind of disproportionately busy for this time of year. So some of the staff who've been moved away from work they might normally be doing are moved across to things like supporting email conversations, supporting telephones. So there is still a lot of work going on. It's more about, as Joe has said, moving those resources around on the council side.
Okie dokie. Got one from Laura Retty here. Have you got any plans on how to handle the queues out of doors of barbershops and hairdressers once we're all once we're out of the woods on this? Laura, I think it's safe to say we've got so many hairdressers, it feels like, in the Cotswolds, and indeed barbers. I think they're going to be doing a roaring trade. So maybe now, while you've got time on your hands, maybe now is the time to retrain as a barber or a hairdresser. But we'll see. Anybody who wants to volunteer to give me a cut after, gratefully received. Right, what have we got? The next question we've got is from Rob Duggan. Rob is doing great work coordinating the volunteer effort in Cirencester. Will the council be coordinating a list of all local agencies and charities offering support to enable people to signpost themselves to places for support? I know our officers are sort of beginning a piece of work on this already. I think actually they've been working on it for a few days, a week or so. So yes, I think in answer to your question, we will get that document and we will aim to make sure that groups like yours, Rob, in Cirencester, and other groups such as in Fairford and other areas have access to that, because knowledge is power in these situations. Right, what else have we got then? Got one from Bryn Stafford. Are children allowed in the supermarket? I'm a single mum and no one in my household. I've got no one in my household to watch my 7-year-old son. As far as I'm aware, you are absolutely okay to take your child to the supermarket with you. Going to the supermarket is an essential necessity. We'd of course encourage you to try and do it once a week if you can. But yes, I've seen children in the supermarket in the past day or so, so I don't think there's any problem or restriction on that. Just, of course, make sure that you're following the social distancing restrictions, and can we make sure that everybody is nice to the staff, because they're doing a really, really good job. Right, James Bateman says, hi, Joe. Hello, James. What else have we got? We've got one from Brenda Freeman. Will you do this even after the coronavirus? I think that's a really good example, a really good question, actually, and I'm more than happy to continue doing this on a whole range of issues if you find it useful. Right. We have got... How is CDC supporting the arts and cultural sector in the Cotswold district to contribute to the creative health and well-being of residents now and in the future? That's from Justin Haig. Justin, I think that's a really, really good question. And to be honest, at this stage, that we're probably not doing a lot at this moment to support the cultural sector. All priority is on, of course, tackling the coronavirus. But we have got a number of grant schemes that community groups can access, that they can go for. We've got our Growing Our Communities Fund that we've had for the past year. I know a number of organisations have applied for that, and that ranges from arts and crafts groups to young people. We've been doing a lot of work with Newbury Arts in Cirencester. We've given them a grant. So the District Council is committed to supporting arts and craft. I think it's actually one of those areas that in a crisis like this, we should really be supporting. Certainly when we're out of this, it's going to need support, but arts and culture is really, really important. I think the other thing to say is we're here in the Barn Theatre in Cirencester, one of the best examples of the cultural offer we have in the Cotswolds. So supporting groups like this is absolutely key. And I hope when the coronavirus pandemic is over, we are all supporting our local groups, theatres, actually all businesses, pubs and restaurants, because they're all going to need it. Right, I'm going to go, what else have we got? Got one from Emma Baddeley in Stow-on-the-Wold. Can you please explain why building contractors are still working at Stow-on-the-Wold and walking around town in groups, putting us all at risk? We are all trying to self-isolate it, and everybody should do it. I think that's a really good question. I understand, and Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong, that construction workers are still seen as essential. We've actually had the same direction from government about our planning department, so the planning team are still working as normal. That's been deemed as an essential service. They're all doing it from home. Clearly, we want everybody to be following the social distancing rules that we've got. So if you see people doing that, report it to the authorities, dial the police's number 101 and report that sort of thing. I know Inspector Simon Elson, who is responsible for policing in the Cotswolds, is doing a fantastic job. They're really trying to be proactive and make sure that they're policing with people, not doing it to people. But of course, if there are breaches, make sure you report that to the authorities. Right, what else have we got? I've got one from Rosemary Ashmore in Amicrucis. You might not be able to answer the question, Andrew, but do we know when the garden waste service is going to be renewed? It's probably quite a simple answer, isn't it?
Yes, no. At the minute, it'll all be dependent upon what will happen with staffing. So our original plan was to try and move away the renewal dates, for example, from kind of peak time in March and extend the service, but obviously now we've had to suspend the service completely. As soon as we have a better idea of when we can realistically get the service up and running, we'll plan to do so and we'll start informing people. The key thing at the minute is not to do anything too hasty, a bit like the situation we're in with all of the social distancing and isolation measures, because we can't try to start running something and then find that the circumstances nationally change again and then we have to stop it again. So it's about when we know we can consistently get it running and support the staff on that as well as the core services.
Okie dokie. I've got one from James Bateman, who said hi to me earlier. Will the council still be grass cutting, and is this a key role? Cotswold District Council doesn't do a lot of grass cutting, I'm aware. Andrew, you might be able to shed some light on that. It's usually done by our town councils and the county council. But Andrew, do you want to sort of add from the District Council's point of view?
I think that's one of the things that falls under my environmental health part of my portfolio. And I think at the last count we had about 13 patches of grass, in quotes, which range from very small to field size, that we looked after. Where we're able to do something, we will do, where those people are working isolated. But similarly, if we need those staff to do other things, they'll be doing other things. I suspect, from my own experience of knowing what's happening in my own neck of the woods in the Cotswolds, that'll be true with a lot of the towns and parishes, and I'm sure the county will be making similar decisions about what it does for the areas that it maintains, for things like highways and other areas it's responsible for.
Thanks, Andrew. Got one here from Sabrina Poole. I think I'll answer this. If people need to apply for council tax support due to their personal circumstances, will the process require physical signatures / paper and or physical travel for claimants? Really good question, Sabrina. At the minute, a lot of the processes in a lot of councils, and Cotswold is included, require physical signatures. We're not as digital as we'd like to be. We're trying to change that as quickly as possible. Certainly at the minute, I wouldn't expect there to be any need for a physical signature or to hand any forms in. What I will do is I will follow up with that after this meeting and make residents aware. But yeah, I totally agree. We need to make sure that accessing council tax support, particularly online, is as easy as possible and doesn't require any sort of physical paper for obvious reasons. So I think that's one that my finance team are already aware of, but we will make sure that we chase that one up. Right. From Rob Caston, I think this is to you, Andrew. There's more important things to worry about right now, but once we're out of this crisis, will the fortnightly garden waste collections be reviewed? So I'm getting so many messages, they're popping up. So in the growing season, fortnightly really isn't going to be often enough. I thought the original plan was infrequent collections in the winter, but still weekly in the spring, summer and autumn. Andrew.
This has been a topic of conversation for me all year until obviously current events overtook it. I've heard quite a lot of people describe the plans they thought they were. This scheme that we're talking about that's coming in now was originally proposed back in 2018 and it was adjusted slightly in the beginning of 2019 before there was a change of administration at Cotswold District Council, basically to keep the winter service running fortnightly. Simple answer is there is nobody else in the rest of the entire country, apart from Milton Keynes to my knowledge, who runs a weekly garden waste collection service. And that's because environmentally and financially it doesn't make sense. It's a huge subsidy for us when we're only charging £30 or £35 for it, even on a fortnightly basis to run it, and it becomes a cost of about £67 per bin to run if we try and do it on a weekly basis. So the simple answer at the minute is, although we're looking at how best to manage garden waste going forward, it doesn't seem likely there'd be a return to weekly, because it would be going against the grain of the national picture and the carbon and climate change measures that we're all trying to take.
Thanks, Andrew. And I think the thing to say is if you've got follow-up points that we can't answer, give Andrew an email, pop an email to me, and we will try to get them. We'll try to get those sort of follow-up questions answered. Just looking, we're getting lots of questions about the council tax support scheme. I think we need more clarity on that, so I will go away, particularly around applying for it, and we'll aim to put a communique out about that. But I think the key thing is head to the website first of all, look at that, look at the advice on there, and then call call the council if you need that support. What have we got? Amanda Jane Davis in Bourton on the Water. Hello to everybody watching in Bourton on the Water. Amanda just wants to give a shout out to the Bourton Street volunteers in Bourton on the Water. By tomorrow, they will have had 100% coverage of homes in the parish for volunteering or help. We're working with Cotswold Friends, the co-op, businesses, pharmacies, churches, council and many others. Thank you to CDC for your help, especially Jackie Wright and Councillor Jenny Forde and Nick Maunder, the councillor there. So again, big thank you to all council staff and councillors that are helping with the effort. Right, we're going to take a couple more, and then we're going to need to wrap up. But fear not, we will be here. We will be here next week to answer your questions, and of course, any questions that I've got on here that I haven't been able to read out, we will get answered in the meantime. feel free to private message me with your email address if you've got that, and we will aim to I'll aim to get you an email as soon as possible. Right, let's have a look. Claire Finnemore in Cirencester. I'm partially sighted, which means I can't drive or cycle. I've not been able to do any online shopping with Tesco for the past 3 weeks, and today the message on their website is the same as it's been since my last delivery, saying no slots available. The date is now through until the 20th of April. The other supermarkets are the same. I need to buy heavy items like cat food and litter and basic provisions, which I can't carry on my back. I know there are lots of others like me. It doesn't seem fair to be asking the neighbours, mostly over 75, as I've recently discovered, to get my shopping for me. Is there a way of suggesting that people who can drive should stick to click and collect? Claire, a really important question. Obviously, we've got limited powers to be able to influence what the supermarkets do, but of course we will make a representation to our MP and we will try and make that process easier and lobby for action. I think a really important role there for volunteers. I think volunteers are going to be key. I'd encourage you to sign up if you need help to the Gloucestershire Help Hub. That's what it's there for. That's what it's there for. If you're having a problem getting shopping, you struggle to get out and it's going to be a challenge, then sign up via the Gloucestershire Help Hub. That's gloucestershire.gov.uk, and you'll be able to sign up and say you need some assistance and help. And I think that's a message I really want to get across to people. If you need help, ask for it, and do that through the Gloucestershire Help Hub on the County Council's website. Equally, if you want to volunteer, you can do it there as well. I think a key part of the government's efforts and indeed the councils is recognising that we've got a fantastic voluntary organisation right across the Cotswolds, but of course we need to support and we need to know the people that need help. The amount of volunteers that are popping up in Cirencester and across the Cotswolds is absolutely inspiring. It shows we've got a great sense of community spirit, but we need to know where the help is. So if you need help, then please get it and go through the Gloucestershire Help Hub. And we can make sure that we can help you. Right, I'm looking at our team at the back, and they're telling me that we need to end the broadcast. So I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. As I said, if we didn't answer your question today, I will aim to answer it either by email or on Facebook. We're going to be here next week at 3:30, every Tuesday at 3:30. I'd also like to know from you if there's people you'd like to hear from, if there's a particular area of council business that you'd like to hear from, we can facilitate that. Equally, I've thought about asking the police and other agencies if they'd like to come and chat, so I'll let you know the outcome of that. So folks, thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you found it useful. Apologies if I haven't been able to answer your question, but I will get to doing that after this meeting, and of course there is an opportunity next week. Thanks very much for joining us on behalf of Andy, on behalf of Jenny, and on behalf of everybody here at the Barn Theatre. Thank you very much.